Let's offer our own tentacles in friendship. I'm Anthony.
I'm Damon.
I'm David.
I'm Jim.
I'm Eric.
Welcome to issue number 124 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Each and every week, we meet here in our individual homes to talk about comics.
Wait, that's not right.
Oh, wait, no, it's not. For those of you listening, you may hear that the audio is maybe slightly different, but the voices are in the right order. But if you are watching us on youtube.com, this brand new website that just came out, youtube.com, this is going to be the format going forward for the foreseeable future as we are dealing with the coronavirus and the social distancing. So this is the way we can continue to do a comic book club and give you our thoughts and opinions and reviews and talk about geek stuff through the Crimson Cowl Comic Club as well as under the Cowl. So the format will still be the same. So bear with us here as we try this whole new streaming service here, presented by Zoom. Okay, what we're going to do here on the club, we're going to have a club discussion pick, which is It Came Out on a Wednesday, number 11, and then we'll jump over to our weekly reviews as well as a news segment. So we're going to kick it off with It Came Out on a Wednesday, number 11, from Alterna Comics, Horror, Sci-Fi, and Fantasy Comics Magazine. This is the anthology that comes out every 2 months, a bunch of short stories. Some are continuing of other Alterna series, but each issue of this publication is a jump-on point. You don't need previous parts of certain stories to kind of get into it. So what we do with the club discussion on this title, we kind of go around the internet as we talk about which stories that we really liked. Is there someone that wants to start?
Ooh, me, pick me, ooh.
Which is weird because you're usually not the one to jump and come up with an answer. Wait, that's right. You didn't have a chance to read this one, right?
I actually did. I got a chance to read it actually as we were preparing for things.
Oh.
In between ringing up everybody's orders and running them out to the curb and things like that, I got to read most of it. I didn't finish the last story, but I read enough of it to figure out which would be my favorite story in this book. So that one I enjoyed. Overturned.
That was my favorite one, too.
Mine too.
Mine too.
It was creative. I had a feeling pretty early on kind of where they were going with it, but that didn't ruin it for me. I enjoyed the way that they did it. I was just a little bit confused on how to read the end of it because they kind of do this thing where you flip it upside down, but it didn't work exactly how I thought it was going to work. Because you still read, even though it flips upside down, you don't read it from top to bottom, you read it from bottom to top, which I thought was a little weird. But yeah, it was enjoyable. Like I said, even though I kind of had an idea where they were going with it. And I want to say, so that was on page 2, words and art by Matt Chin, and letters by Hieroglyph. But it's got, I like the artwork. I like these alien characters. It's interesting because they all have these unique faces. Each of their faces I saw were the same, but they're all kind of like this Rorschach pattern.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
And there's some, they're different enough that you can look at one of them and kind of recognize like there's kind of a main character, and when you look at him, you can quickly realize who he is versus if you're looking at one of these other aliens, because they look very similar and yet their face patterns are unique. And I just like the overall story, how they're saying that in this case, it's another like life form that finds this weird, strange, unexplained alien thing in their world, and they're not sure if it's an alien invasion, if it's going to be hostile, if it's going to be friendly, and they don't have a way of communicating, and the way that they can communicate is not necessarily understood the way it was intended. So it's miscommunication. And then when we flip it around and we go to the other way, we find out that it's like these human astronauts that are exploring, the moon, not our moon. It's trying to think which planet's moon it is. I
think it was the fourth moon of Samedi.
No, because Europa is an actual moon, isn't it? Of like Jupiter or something like that.
I think it's a Jupiter.
Yeah. I could be completely wrong. I didn't look it up, and I'm not that smart, so I could be mistaken. But I think it's an actual moon.
That's not a moon. That's a space station.
But they dug into the planet, and these creatures are living like on the inside, in like the core of the planet. So when you find out that it's these human astronauts that have found them, these aliens, one of them comes up to talk to them because he thinks that they actually were friendly and people are just misunderstanding what was going on. It decides to follow them, and it goes up to the surface, and then the humans' reactions to this thing is pretty much the same as what the alien reaction to the humans were. So there you go.
Excellent. Jim.
I did like that story. Like somebody said, it kind of knew where it was going before it got there. It was a little obvious, but it was a good story. My favorite was the Tinseltown one. Tinseltown, which has been a series from Alterna, and is coming back again. They threw a little short story in here, where Abigail and her cowboy boyfriend are going bowling, and they run into a situation where this is set in the 1920s, so these aren't automatic bowling alleys. They have pin boys, and they are young black men, and some guys who are bowling at another lane are making a game of trying to hit the pin boys instead of the buck pins. And Abigail and her companion take it upon themselves to deal out some justice. So I know that was an interesting story. I really enjoyed the original series, so it was just nice to see this come back again.
Yeah, and I haven't read Tinseltown, but this story was very enjoyable, kind of proving the point that every issue of this has been a jump-on point. So I didn't know anything about the world, but if they do end up making any kind of movie, then Haley Atwell should play her because she's already great at kick-ass woman in a period piece. So.
I actually could see that. Probably have to drop the accent because this is meant to be an American
Hollywood
in America, not a Brit in America.
You could do it.
She pull it off.
And then Danny DeVito or somebody can play that guy in the
boyfriend. I don't think he really fits the part.
Oh no, yeah.
The pin boy.
All right, Eric.
Well, I said the Overturn one was definitely my favorite, but I mean there are only 4 stories if you count the one-page Mr. Crypt in here.
Which I do.
Well, you have to count the one-page Mr. Crypt.
Otherwise, it's only 3 stories.
Okay. Well, fine, 4th story. Well, the 4th story, that was interesting one. I don't know, the story, it seemed kind of basic to me, though. I mean, they're at a planet, they need to kill aliens, and one of the new guys is very scared. But in the very end, he comes through, plants the tracker, and they fry Godzilla, essentially. I like the art. It's a little cartoony, but I think it's distinct. I think their general or their commander, can't tell if that, I don't know, she has a war wound or she's just a mutant or something.
Like Captain Two-Face there.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on with her, but either way, it was, let's say,
Actually, it reminds me a lot of Carl from The Walking Dead.
yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I don't know. I think definitely the first 2 stories in this were my favorite. So.
All right. Speaking of Mr. Crypt, I always go to bat for him. And what I like seeing about this one, even though it's a one-page story, we're now incorporating some of the newer characters that we've seen in the Mr. Crypt and Baron Rat adventures, especially as we see here as Bigfoot. So I kind of like that is it's not just a Crypt and Baron Rat anymore, that they're kind of world building within their stories and bringing them into even the one-pagers too. So, but yeah.
What's weird to me is how much Bigfoot looks like Chewbacca.
Or does Chewbacca look like Bigfoot?
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, so even though Overturn was my favorite story, I will, as I usually do, give a little spotlight for Mr. Crypt. So yeah, that one I really enjoyed. Damon?
I was going to say Overturn was also my favorite. This was actually the first. It came out on a Wednesday that I read.
Oh.
So I didn't know what to expect going in. Nice little sampling of stories, but Overturn was definitely the best one, in my opinion.
I do miss the bigger books with more stories, but it's good for what it is. It's a nice selection. They're not all the same thing.
Good.
I do wonder if they're cutting back because of lack of submissions, or they're just cutting back.
They did it around the same time that they did some price changing, and I know Peter Samedi over there, he was really trying to not increase prices, but $1.50 a book obviously isn't that bad anyway. So, or in this case, $1.99. So there were a couple different price changes, and in that change, what they did is they kept this, because it was $1.99 before, right? So rather than raise the price, they just cut back the page down.
Right.
And every cover of It Came Out on Wednesday is featured by a different artist. So they have Behind the Cover with Elliot Fernandez. That you can usually find around halfway page through the book. And we have our Wednesday Warrior who interviews our cover artist. Obviously, we all know this, given information, that the Wednesday Warrior and Peter Samedi are 2 separate beings. So they're, not at all linked. So we can just get beyond that. But yeah, it's cool just to get a little interview where the artist always talks about the influences and hey, look, we got Peter Samedi. Oh, wait, no, he's got.
I fooled you.
I'll turn to the fanboy here.
I'm also not the Wednesday Warrior.
Yeah.
Or am
I? But what's really cool about this one, Elliot Fernandez, you see some of his other artwork that is pictured here. And I was very surprised because I actually own a T-shirt of the Loki Charms shirt that is pictured, the design that's in the book. This is one of those things that I got through QWERTY, probably QWERTY.com, like those shirt a day type of deals. And I was kind of stunned to see that. And I'm like, hey, I have a T-shirt of his art. So that's kind of cool. So, yeah. I always like that feature. And if there's nothing else to say, that will wrap it up for another Wednesday. Okay, so what we will do now in the audio podcast, this little part will be trimmed.
Yes.
But in the video,
for anybody watching on YouTube, you get to see what happens in between the segments,
Yep.
which isn't a whole lot of anything. It's mostly Anthony fumbling around and looking at his phone and
Getting
things
set,
like that.
ready to go.
It's all the time. Also, the time when I do things like try to find my chapstick because my lips are a little dry and it's difficult to talk with dry, cracking lips. Anybody have any chapstick I can use?
Oh, you having a? Oh, well, here you can borrow mine if you need it.
Yeah, here, it's in my pocket.
There you go.
All right, thanks.
I'll take it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. All right. So let's go ahead and. Okay, I'm starting recording for the new segment.
That special effect just ate all of our budget.
Okay, here we go.
Well worth it though.
Welcome to the weekly review section. We're going to talk about the books that we've been reading that came out in the last week or so. This is something I picked up about a month ago at C2E2, aka the last comic book convention ever. This is from Chapter House Comics, and it's called Die Kitty Die. This is a book that is done by Fernando Ruiz and Dan Parent, who are both Archie writers and artists. And this is a creator-owned project they did as a Kickstarter back in, I want to say, 2015. Why would anyone want to kill a poor, innocent witch? Kitty Ravencraft was at the top of her game, a hugely successful comic book character for years. Then her sales began to plummet. Now her publishers want her dead. But how exactly do you kill a witch, and who's going to do it? This is a Volume 1 trade that's collecting the first 4 issues with bonus material, pinups, and more. And Dan Parent, who I had commissioned at C2E2 for a sketch, Betty and Veronica recast as Silver Surfer and Galactus. I've always wanted to get onto this series, and I wanted to buy the book personally from him, which he then autographed as well right there. But yeah, I finally had time to read this, and it is 100% up my alley. It is done in a Archie-esque style, Archie House style, if you will. And they both actually do the writing and the art, so they kind of they both kind of do that Archie classic style, so that kind of helps in this format. This is a mature reader's book. This is basically like, what if a normal Archie comic was a mature reader level book? Yes, they've had the Afterlife with Archie and horror stories and more grown-up tales and things like that, but this is their version of that. Has nothing to do with Archie. Stars their main character, Kitty, and when reading this, I knew exactly that Kirby, who's not with us here today but is listening at home on the podcast version, Kirby, this is 100% something you would love. There are 3 volumes of it, and then there's a 4th volume that is up for a Kickstarter at the moment. They just launched it this past week, so there's plenty of time to jump in and pledge for either a PDF or a trade paperback version and things like that. So yeah, if you love Archie comics but you wanted kind of a fun parody of it, you're getting that here, not only with characters like you have a Casper type of character. Who's the devil? Like, was it just like Little Devil or something like that? Or there's a character in the like old cartoony comic strips.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I'm not sure the name though.
But
kind of the same thing along with Casper and Wendy and yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so they have a character like that in here. And what's really, really cool about this, I don't know if this is part of the bonus material with the volume hardcover or if it's in the individual issues, but before each of the main issues starts, it's a more older style Archie, but it's in the Kitty story, so it's from her own comic book. So it's one of those meta things where it's, she didn't really have old school comics, but they do they make believe like this is from something from the 30s or 40s, saying you've seen this issue from blah, blah, blah. It says, from the pages of Agent Kitty's All-Stars, number 22, May 1976. Well, that's something that did not exist, but they're giving you a little sampling before you jump into the real-life story of Kitty, who this comic is based on. So it's almost like a Jay and Silent Bob, Bluntman and Chronic, sort of setup, but in an Archie style with witches, mature readers. Die Kitty Die. It's awesome. I now have to get the other volumes and catch up, and I pledged for the 4th volume, currently on Kickstarter. Next up, Damon?
Well, also for mature readers is the trade paperback of Money Shot.
Yes.
It is written by Tim Seeley and Sarah Beatty, drawn by Rebecca Isaacs, colored by Kurt Michael Russell, and lettered by Crank. Basically, it takes place in the future. In 2027, an advanced alien civilization made contact, and the people of Earth discovered they were not alone. An offer to join the civilized universe was made. But then the aliens saw what a total beep show Earth was, engaged in hundreds of wars led by greedy politicians and fumbling to advance technologically. Humanity was deemed not worth the effort, and the offer was withdrawn. Unable to build spaceships capable of interstellar travel, humans eventually lost interest in the stars. Now, this story takes place in 2032, where scientists in an economically crippled America struggle to fund innovative projects. And that's where the Money Shot comes in.
In 2032, the economy is still crippled?
Yes,
I was hoping this is going to be over in a month or two, 18 months tops,
Nobody has toilet paper. It's probably gone into anarchy.
Yeah. But in 2032, space travel is ludicrously expensive and largely ignored. Enter Christine Ocampo, who is the inventor of the Starship teleportation device with a big idea. She'll travel to new worlds, engage intimately with local aliens, and film her exploits for a jaded Earth populace trying to find something new on the internet. Now Chris and her merry band of scientists come porn stars explore the universe, each other, and the complexities of sex. Basically, this is a story about scientists having sex with aliens for the glory of mankind and for money. This group of scientists absolutely hate each other. There's 5 of them, 3 women and 2 men, all coming from different backgrounds, and their areas of expertise are different, but they were thrown together for this project, and they can't stand each other, and they realize their project's going to come to an end, and they need money. That's when the leader of this group finds out how boring people are, how bored people are with porn and sex. She went on to her favorite porn site and saw what people were watching. They do anything for something new. And that's where she came with the idea to explore space, have sex with aliens, film it, and the money they make would fund their expedition. So yes, this is not a comic for kids. And basically this story arc, it was a popular series. I waited for the trade because I didn't know about it when it first came out, and the first couple issues are hard to find. They're already up to 4th and 5th printings of the first one, so I just waited for the trade and picked it up. And there is a story arc. They discover this world called Dry Reef, and it's all the water is gone, and it's all fish-like creatures that have somehow evolved to live on land. And one tribe has this immense power called the Padma Megra, which they harness the energy from their orgasm, and they're able to turn it into a nuclear type of power, which they feel could, use as a fuel source for their ship. And of course, things go wrong, and they get trapped in a big war.
That sounds like you could add new meaning to the term radioactive spill.
Yes. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Here's a page I could show. There's no nudity, but it is.
I was wondering if the YouTube version was going to have the explicit rating, under the cowl.
That's only if we swear, I think, or expose ourselves. And I have no interest in doing that.
Yeah,
As
and
long
it's
as I
funny.
don't stand up, I'm fine.
Yeah, and we hope everyone, participating in this group all have their pants on. But there is nudity, there is sex with aliens, there is drama between the group and relationships and interests and that, and it was fun. It was funny. I've come to like Tim Seeley and some of the stuff that he's written, and so I was interested to check this out. I picked it up more from my wife. She's into that kind of thing, and I'm gonna blame her for that. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But yeah, it was fun, and I'm actually looking forward to the second arc. Don't let your kids read it, but if you like, a sci-fi adventure, that's rated X and some humor, it was a good read. I recommend picking it up.
All right, we had 2 mature titles in a row, so let's go to our third mature title with Jim.
Yeah, I have the very advanced, very adult Rocket and Groot.
Oh.
Groot.
This was actually quite a cute book. I know Rocket and Groot mostly from the movies, a little bit from comics because I'm not a real big Marvel guy, but I did like that. So I picked this up because this is a good sized book. It's it's 10 issues worth of books in here, and they are something that I think a lot of you guys would really like because let's see, there's some good cameos. There's one that I know Damon's going to want to buy this book now. Let's see, let's find the right page. It's going to make you jealous.
I'm afraid to find out.
Oh, yeah. All right. It starts out with a story of Groot is looking for Rocket because he's been missing for a while. Apparently, this is something that happened, a few years ago in the real comic books. And Groot doesn't know where he went, so he's looking for him. He stops on Earth to figure out where he went, and he's interviewing everybody he can find on Earth. And he talks to many of the other superheroes. And I can't find the page now, but he ends up talking to Howard the Duck. And they have a scene with him getting advice from Howard the Duck. So like the first 3 issues are about that, and then it ends up that Rocket was ruling a different planet under an assumed name. Then there's a couple other issues, where they're just simple one-off stories. There's a issue where there's Rocket is the dungeon master for a bunch of Avengers, and they're playing a game, and he gets into an argument with Tony Stark because Tony Stark wants to change the rules to suit him, and Rocket says you can't do that, and then he's invited to play a fantasy football game with Tony Stark. And they actually go to a different planet, and there's this, instead of playing on computers where Rocket has studied all the players about all the football so he can do it and hack the game. No, he has to go and actually play against all these recruited fantasy football player teams. It's like, so there's, like I said, there's a few stories like that. And then the final story takes up another 3 issues, and it's set during the Civil War II event. And Rocket and Groot volunteer for a mission that's going to take them to Georgia, of all places, because there is a character that Rocket recognizes as a part of somebody who stiffed him on a job in the past. So he wants to go take care of that. And it ends up that while they're doing that, this guy had information that would allow for Captain Marvel to be killed. So they have to hurry up and get back to save Carol But on course with that, they also run into Gwenpool, who is also hunting the same bounty, and they team up with her. And which is good about this is the first time I've ever read Gwenpool stuff, so that was really interesting too.
Okay, we'll add that.
Apparently, she talks to the book just like Deadpool does. So, but yeah, very bright, colorful book. The writers were Scotty Young and Nick Coker, I'm guessing, and the artists are Felipe Andrade and Aaron Conley, with a few others on inks and colors, and it's 10 books, so there's like a whole list of artists and writers here. Not gonna go through them all now, but yeah, I really liked this book. If I saw more in this style, I'd probably pick them up.
Speaking of Scotty Young, and I know Eric is the other Scotty Young fan here. Here is the Dorothy of Oz I had him sketch several years back before he became super famous at Marvel. So this was a lot cheaper than would it be now because he's just in high demand. But yeah, Scotty Young's awesome.
There you go.
Oh yeah, there's Howard. All right. Then the next up on the list, Eric.
I have Immortal Hulk 32. This isn't the first time I've done this series because it's gotten very bizarre. After escaping all the agents who are against him, Bruce Banner has now decided to try to take on big corporations, namely Roxxon. And Roxxon's CEO is literally a giant bull, or he's had himself adapted to be a minotaur.
Yeah, we saw that in the Mighty Thor series with Jane Foster, where that originated.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I never read that. But recently, they were just getting off of a battle. There were 3 giant, like, Godzilla-type creatures. And out of nowhere, this character called Zemnu, who, he basically looks like a giant space yeti, just came in, fought off the monsters, and then later you find out that, he's working for Roxxon. And in this comic, you find out his main ability, while he is strong and he has, like, telekinesis, he's able to actually weaponize the Mandela effect, which I don't know if everyone knows what Mandela effect is. It's how a lot of people, they think that the line is, Luke, I am your father. How many people thought that Mandela died in the 80s when he really died in 2005? Berenstain Bears versus Berenstain. But anyway, so everyone remembers Zemnu as being the Hulk and the leader of the Avengers and the leader of the X-Men. Very busy, obviously, but nobody seems to be able to, have a clue. And we also find out that now it's not Bruce Banner, it's Robert Banner. And he's actually a villain. And in this, Robert, for some reason, Bruce has actually been affected by it, but the Hulk hasn't. So now he's in his own battle with the Hulk. And another thing I like about this comic is I know that a lot of people have given hell to Marvel because they try to be more involved in what you call woke culture. This time we find out that a character who's actually been in the issue for several times is trans. I like how they do this because it's a lot more organic. It's not where she just comes out and says, I'm trans every issue. Basically, she's stating how, everybody has the Mandela effect, how, she even remembers meeting Daredevil, but the memory that she has in her head is that it was Zemnu. And she relates the experience of, not like existing within this reality, but not fully fitting into the reality with her experience of being trans. And I think this is like the way to do it. And it's, you know, it's not in your face, it's not preachy. It's a lot different than, I don't know if any of you have seen what's coming up with New Warriors. There's actually a character, Snowflake, and Safe Space. That's just kind of a hard sell, but I think the way they did it in this issue is a lot better. And definitely fits in the story. I'm really looking forward to see where this goes, because, you know, right now we have Bruce Banner, who thinks he's a villain, and he doesn't even realize that what everyone remembers isn't true. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay. Next up on the list will be Spider-Woman #1. Jessica Drew hasn't been feeling like herself lately. She's not a squirrel, we promise. When the angry, irritable, and unwell Spider-Woman takes a simple security gig to help get back on her feet, she finds herself besieged by unknown forces out to destroy everything around her. What's wrong with Jessica? Just how did she get this job? And who are these violent lunatics who keep trying to blow her up? Who cares? Does Spider-Woman have someone to punch? That's all that matters. It's been a few years since Jessica Drew has had her own title. The last time we seen it, she was pregnant on the cover of the beginning of her series and had since had her baby, and is dealing with, you know, her tight-knit group of friends telling her, you know, stay at home, we got this, we can cover, you know, the detective stuff that you're doing. But
it's a very timely one. Everybody's saying, hey, stay at home.
Yeah. That was from the years ago one, but now now her kid is grown
ahead of its time.
Yeah. Now her kid's grown a little more in here, still kind of like a toddler. Didn't take like a huge time jump or anything like that, but this issue just got right into the action, and it's dealing with that Spider-Woman was hired to basically watch over this kind of rich girl's birthday party. This guy who has this cruise boat, who has a bunch of activities going, and everyone's kind of dressed up as like superheroes and stuff. And Spider-Woman herself is there, but she's on security duty. And basically there's been a lot of threats for the daughter of this rich guy, and that's why she is here. But you really don't get into why, but I assume that's part of the whole story arc that has started here. There is a fun moment here where Jessica Drew is dealing with this little kid who's dressed as Deadpool, and he's kind of, you know, being pretty snotty with her and stuff, and there's just a nice scene where she just had enough of his crap and threw him off the cruise boat into the water, and then just threw the life preserver out at him. But it was a fun little moment of just like, wow, she's pretty vicious there. But, you know, the kid had it coming. So, but yeah, it's a very high-octane, action-packed adventure going on that you, once again, don't really know the reasoning for the girl being sought out to be kidnapped and who these guys are, but it's just full of an adventure and super fun. But there is something at the very end that is kind of sets up what might be wrong with Spider-Woman, and this will be a bonus for anyone watching on YouTube. And this book had come out, you know, 2 Wednesdays ago, and this is a spoiler segment. But for those of you listening on the podcast version, you will not hear the details of what Spider-Woman might be dealing with here. And we really don't know what, but this is basically how the story ended. And it kind of left you to be like, okay, yep, I need the next one. But super love seeing Jessica Drew back in action. And this actually has a backup story going into her new costume as seen on the covers and making the headlines that Spider-Woman has a new costume. But yeah, super loved it. Awesome creative team. We have Carla Pacheco and Pierre Perez and Frank Darmada. In the new storyline, new costume, who dis? That is Spider-Woman #1. Damon?
and I suppose it would help if I unmuted my thing.
I was
But
gonna
yes.
say, did we lose his audio?
This is a special for YouTubers only. You know, the YouTube audience. Yeah, this will be the silent Undiscovered Country review.
Yeah, for
Yes,
for all
we'll
of
just
our
cut that and add it to the gag reel.
for all of our mime fans out there.
Yes. But here I am talking about Undiscovered Country number 5.
Yes.
Number 4 was a Revelations issue. We found out many things about certain people, what was going on. This issue, to me, was a lot of fun. It was a lot of action. And it set up everything for the final issue coming, hopefully in a month or two, whenever Diamond decides they want to start shipping again. But there was a lot of fun. There was a confrontation between the brother and sister. You find a little bit more information. They make it to the doorway that leads to the next, I guess you would say, state, because the country is now divided into, I think, 5 different realms or states, however you want to describe it. And they made it to the doorway that leads to the next state, which I think will be the big setup for the next arc after the next issue. And, of course, the bad guy, the Destiny Man, is hot on their trail because he wants to get out of his state and pretty much conquer the rest of the United States, or what's left of the United States. It answered some questions, but then it leaves you asking a whole lot more. Overall, this is just a great series. For those that haven't been on it, I highly recommend picking up the trade when it comes. It shouldn't be too far out. There's special features in the back of every issue. In the back of this one, we now have the full timeline of all the events leading up to the sealing off of America. It's not too hard to see what's going on. Yes, there's the slow-mo.
It's also reversed.
Yeah.
I'll go from this way then. Oh wait, that doesn't work.
Unless we're going back in time.
And for those that can read really special, here it is upside down.
Overturned, if you will.
Overturn. Yes, there we go. You have all those events. You have another, letter from one of the authors going over the process, and then, sketches in the back. And then they even talk more about the meeting they had for the movie. So this is going to be a movie. I'm hoping it will come out. My guess would be probably summer of 22, because, if they're writing the screenplay now, it probably takes about a year to get it all together and then start filming. And then this would be like a Mad Max type of film. So this would be like a big summer movie, I think. So I'm hoping summer of 2022, we get the film Undiscovered Country. But it was a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to the next issue. I know, Anthony, you're reading it, obviously, because you're flashing it for the camera. What do you have to add to it?
Issue for the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really dug this issue as well. I want to call out Matt Wilson, who did the colors. He's been doing the colors, I believe. But the stuff seeing between the brother and the sister, I just love all of the scenery. Even like the sky, it looks like a rainbow sherbet type of. I guess I can show it. Just the color schemes on this for what is a very dark and whatever kind of book, there is a lot of fun, bright colors that kind of are thrown in there in moments that you wouldn't really think, even right in the opening page. And just this, all these characters are climbing this wall, but even these are presented in kind of some cool, pinks and reds and purples and stuff. But while there's very gruesome things happening, there's a lot of brightness being, how it's showcased. So, but yeah, it's doing a good job to kind of set up that, the end of this first arc coming up soon. And like you had mentioned with the trade, I'm pretty sure it's in the catalog for the items currently scheduled for June, but could possibly be later because of what's going on. But yeah, the trade is up there. And since stores got catalogs, still, I assume, place your orders and just business as usual. And we'll see what happens.
For the best.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been loving it as well. So lot of story, a lot of bonus material for $3.99. So, all right, let's move on to the guy who used to be Eric.
I've got Robin, the 80th anniversary book. This is a little anthology book of all new stories written about the different people who used to be or are Robin. If you're listening or watching this, you know that there have been more than one Robins, and you probably even know who they are. So this one covers all of them. Yeah, that one too. It starts with Dick Grayson. We have actually 4 stories covering Dick Grayson because he was first Robin, then he was Nightwing, then he was Nightwing with the Teen Titans, and then finally he was Dick Grayson, Agent 37. They don't cover the Rick Grayson stuff because I guess that wasn't really a superhero thing, but so it's got 4 stories of him as, a superhero or super agent. But then they only have 1 story for Jason Todd, and that's him as the Red Hood. They don't actually cover his Robin days. Although the story does refer back to his time as Robin. Then we have 2 stories about Tim Drake. First one is him as Robin 3, and then the second one is Red Robin. They don't go forward ahead enough time to cover his time as Drake. But
The musician.
I'm fine with that.
Rapper.
The Red Robin story I really like because it ends up leading into the storyline that happened in Detective Comics where Batman recruited Red Robin and Stephanie Brown and Batwoman and to form this new team. So this leads up to, it was Tim Drake's idea to start this team. So it led into that. That was cool. And then there was a Stephanie Brown story for all those who missed Stephanie Brown as being Robin. She's back there. And it ends up with 2 stories of Damian. First of a story with the Super Sons, which is him and Jonathan Kent. And then final one is Damian Wayne, Robin, son of Batman, in Bat and Mouse. And this is a story that is in the current continuity. In fact, it ends saying that the story will be continued in the Teen Titans annual number 2, I believe. So, and it's basically the problems that he and Batman have been having between them or come to a head. So yeah, for one of their anniversary anthologies that have been going on quite frequently lately. So it was a good one.
Excellent. Eric?
Recently, one of my favorite series that came out and come off its hiatus, Robert Kirkman's Die, Die, Die. I mean, you notice it's red, very red, like a tomato. Those who are watching, you'll know. Those who are listening, well, I've just alienated you. You're welcome. But yeah, we're coming off the old series where a plot by a shadow organization that worked for the good of mankind was recently foiled after one of the members decided to take power and ended up losing his nose to a large collection of kitty cats.
Yeah.
But now it picks up afterwards. The senator, her name is Connie Lipschitz. She was, at odds with Barnaby, who wanted to try to, another senator who tried to take control of the shadow organization. Now, one thing I find odd about this shadow organization is that it's not one that looks to just rule the world, but actually works to help out the world. But then again, they're also at the top, so they have all their fun, kinky sex parties and other things.
Of course.
Yeah. And another thing the story revolves around, well, it revolved around 3 brothers, now 2. I believe it's Paul and John who are alive now. Yeah, Paul and John, because George died. Ringo died as a kid. No joke, actually. But you're seeing.
You'd think that it would just be Paul and Ringo left.
Nah, Ringo. Well, we gotta read the series. Poor Ringo. You just trust me on this one. But I find it odd because the last series it ended where Senator Lipschitz tried to, she was fighting someone trying to be like the head honcho in the organization. Everyone pretty much worked as equals. And at the end, you see she's getting a little angry, not happy. She seems kind of determined to undo what she fought so hard to accomplish in the last series. But I don't know, like I've seen with a lot of Kirkman series, this is definitely a series I think would make good live action, just with the fights, the action scenes, and of course the unnecessary wanton violence, which is, it's beautifully illustrated, and but it's also made where it borders between gore and comical. So, but yeah, I was really glad to see this series come back. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes in the future. So, definitely, if you're a Kirkman fan, and who isn't, then you should definitely check it out.
Okay, moving on to Wicked Things. Issue number 1. The Eisner Award-winning team of John Allison and Max Sarin return to the world of Giant Days for a new series about everyone's favorite child detective, Charlotte Groot. 19-year-old Charlotte Groot has her whole life ahead of her, headed straight to Oxford and a future as a real detective until she's framed for murder. Given the choice between going to jail basically forever or joining the police, Lottie decides to hit the beat, all while trying to find the real murderer. This is a character that John Allison has created. He has his own little universe. Giant Days was the first thing I've read of his, and then I started finding out he's got this thing like webcomics. He has Bad Machinery. He's got Scary Go Round, things that are on my long list to read, but a lot of these characters have showed up in those series. And Charlotte Groot here is one of the characters that showed up in Giant Days as well. If you haven't read any of that stuff, they all are pretty standalone to each other, especially the one I'm talking about here. Yeah, this is a limited series from Boombox dealing with this detective. John Allison writes very funny books. The comedy is just like Giant Days, it's drawn by, the same creative team and everything too. So it is very recognizable when it comes to picking this book up out of nowhere, that you can just kind of jump right into it. But it is this story where she's kind of at this award ceremony, and I think she's nominated for, her specific group between the ages 16 and 18 for like teen detectives, and it's just dealing with her kind of being an outcast and all these other other teen detectives that might be slightly older than her that are kind of looking down on her and stuff like that. But it's just pretty entertaining when it's driven with comedy, and that's kind of what I expect every time I pick up a book from John Allison. And this was another great book, not a disappointment. Really enjoyed it. So I'm actually excited to go back, because I've reread Giant Days a couple of times during story arcs and buying the hardcover volumes and things like that. But I kind of want to seek out her issues to kind of refresh my memory, because I don't think she appeared a lot, and it's just kind of. How about you, Eric? Do you remember her from the first volume at all?
Not really. It's been a while since I read the first volume, and.
But yeah, she may have come in later, and she may have only been in that series a couple times, but yeah, very good book if you're into detective. If you're a Nancy Drew fan, this kind of fits that kind of audience without needing to know anything about the Giant Days or John Allison, universe created. That is Wicked Things number 1. Moving on to the guy who will be Eric next.
Muted.
Yep, you're muted.
Just a test to make sure you all were paying attention.
Yep.
After what seems like months of delays, bad reception, and I'm getting a little bit of a glare. Let me shut this monitor off. No, that didn't help. Bad reception, number 4, finally came out.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The reception's not real good. Can you try that again?
Gotcha. This is the creator, the writer, the artist, the letterer. Everything is done by Juan Doe. This is a Revelations issue. You finally get to find out what's going on. The killer is ripping off an idea from one of the main characters. This whole, living off the grid, stay out of social media and all that. He's writing a book about a killer that will kill people based on their following, how many followers they have, and saving the best for last, which is the main person in the story. We also find out one in the group is also not who they appear, and they realize what's going on. They try to run, but they can't hide. The killer's after them. It was a fun issue. It made the last 3 worth it. If you haven't started reading this, the art, it's different, and some of the way the panels are, it changes on the mood. Like, for instance, when you're with the anger, it's like bright. When it's the gloom and darkness, it turns to like the dark purple and reds. Sometimes the panels, it's not just, you read down. Sometimes you have to jump around. It's very creative the way he laid these out. And the story it's a nice murder mystery. Still don't know who it is or who it could be, but it's all leading up to the next issue, which who knows when we'll get that, since it seems every issue in this series has been delayed at least a month. And so I picked up, I think issue number 1 was one of the first books I think I picked up off the rack when I first started coming to the Crimson Cowl, and that was a long time ago, and here we are still sticking with the same series. So hopefully the payoff in the next.
If I remember correctly, that was actually what you did the first time you were in on the Comic Club, issue 1 of Bad Reception.
I'm pretty sure it was me, you, Jim, and Dave, and we were sitting out in the front in the actual store, not in the back. And
I'm still wondering what the bad guy is, because after seeing him like get laid into by an MMA fighter, and
yeah. So you're still reading the story too, then, I take it. Yes. Yeah, that was a good fight. That was like 3 pages, whole page, of a big fight, and then of course the killer has to cheat on the end with the ultimate version of brass knuckles. But it was
in a fight.
What's that?
There is no such thing as cheating in a fight.
Yeah, good point. But here's like the bloody.
Yes.
It's pretty good. The art's a little different. It's a kind of an acquired taste, I would say, but it's a fun story, and I'm really looking forward to the next issue. So,
which I'm sure actually won't be delayed at all.
Oh, it's probably already delayed.
It was going
issue
to be
4 just came out, and issue 5 was supposed to come out like two weeks ago, I think. So we're way behind.
Or with the current situation with the coronavirus, now he bought some extra time to catch up, maybe.
Get caught, yeah.
Could be.
Full-size last issue?
I guess we'll find out eventually.
Yep. Okay, moving on to Jim again.
All right. This is a series that is really becoming one of my favorites. It is Something is Called Killing the Children. This is number 6. And there we got a couple other people reading it, huh?
Yeah, I have it.
This one takes us, well, actually it starts out with like a flashback to what happened before the series right before the series actually started. And we see these boys getting together right before the original murder happened that got James in trouble. And then we go on to see where Erica is currently. dealing with the things in the hospital and that. But then it moves on to what was the most important part. Well, there's a scene with the sheriff doing his investigation and admitting to his deputy that he's getting some help from the outside. But then we move on to the most important part. We see more about this organization that has been kind of behind and giving direction to Erica. And they are these people wearing these strange bandanas. Let's see. Here we go. They're meeting together and they all have these little bandanas with fangs on them. And each person has a little bit different, and apparently the fangs represent whatever their rank is within the organization. And the woman with the white bandana is giving orders to the man and telling him that it's his responsibility to go deal with Erica because she's kind of running off script. And if you have to kill the kid that she's with, so be it. Because the House of Slaughter has learned its lessons about picking up strays. And then we see, there we go, that photograph or portrait, which resembles Erica. So yeah, this was. Go ahead.
There we meet the character of Aaron at the end. Would that be Aaron Slaughter? Like, is that kind of what we're led to believe, that they're all kind of have Slaughter names?
Because it's called the House of Slaughter, so I would not be surprised.
So I bring that up. I may have mentioned this early on, but when the series debuted, in a web series I made, I created a character named Aaron Slaughter. And when I heard Slaughter in the series, I was pretty pumped because I'm like, hey, that's a cool name. And that originated out of me telling a story to my friend about, I was talking about my niece and my brother Aaron and his daughter. So I'm like, oh, yeah, Aaron's daughter is blah, blah, blah. And he goes, who's Aaron Slaughter? I'm like, what? It's like, did you just say Aaron Slaughter? I'm like, no, I said Aaron's daughter. And then I created a character named Aaron Slaughter because it sounded so badass. And so reading the Erica Slaughter series here, I liked it just for that. And then also we meet this character named Aaron. And I'm like, all right, James Tinian the Fourth, I'm gonna have to start, taking some legal action here.
Yeah. And it's interesting that the woman references a character called the Old Dragon, who is kind of her head or her superior in this group. So that has something to do with the fangs and the teeth that they're wearing, so.
Which indicates rank, and I think Erica is like a sergeant.
Sergeant Slaughter.
And she's got the bandana here as well.
I was like, David, I didn't know you were reading the series, and then I'm like, oh, okay. One thing I really dig is when you get into the story several pages in, like a TV show, like the title card comes up with a double page splash here. And I just love that, and I just get like a quick little theme music in my head, just like a big kind of like a Law and Order like type of thing or something. But yeah, I just love the way that paces out the story. So
I have an interesting point. Did anyone who was reading this happen to notice on the last panel her clothes? Does that look like a very period piece? Is she, she's young in the book, but those clothes look extremely old and
like old-fashioned. Correct.
And like
the crest, which is on the back cover for the House of Slaughter, is also embroidered. You can see part of it on the chest of her shirt.
Wow.
Oh wow, I didn't catch that, but nice.
Interesting.
So it looks kind of like, I get a reminiscent like old sailor clothes, like an old,
Right, so she's probably not a sergeant. She's probably like a more of a naval rank.
And the fact that it's a picture that's hanging, like in this day and age, nobody takes pictures and hangs them anymore. This would normally just be on a phone or an iPad. So, all right, I think we're onto something.
But you remember, like, it was at issue 1 or 2 when she showed her license, and all the dates and everything were just didn't scan to what made sense.
Yeah.
So, like, it was a fake ID. So, yeah,
I don't think
that
they
tracks
researched
with it being.
that well.
Well, the other thing is because it's a comic with comic art, you can't tell if this is a picture or like a painted portrait.
Being a framed, would guess it's a painting, but
Yeah.
I would agree. Especially in a big mansion like this, they're not going to just go the cheap route and have some Walgreens picture in a frame. They're going to have like a
and then,
canvas.
how many people have their portraits painted these days?
Well, I'll show you mine here. If you look
We can't do that. We'd need the explicit rating.
wait, what? Who? Wasn't it Kirby or like Rodney that always made a reference to that at one of the old clubs about something?
Yeah.
There's some. I think that's been something that Kirby's been talking about.
The time that Leonardo DiCaprio painted his portrait or sketched him or something. I don't.
Yep. All right. Moving on to Eric.
All right. I have Runaways number 31. Don't know who else has been reading this, but it's been an interesting story arc because the Runaways, throughout their entire run, they've been Runaways. They've never actually done a superhero team where they go out to fight evil or anything. But that kind of changed with this story arc, Cannon Fodder, where a hero, that you never really heard of before, Doc Justice.
I can't hold mine up. It went missing.
It ran away?
Oh my God. Anywho. But yeah, they were taken under the wing of Doc Justice, whose underlings seem to have a really high mortality rate. And, throughout the run, you find out that a lot of them were engineered. So in this, you actually get to see Gertrude fighting on the front lines because, she never really had any powers except for, mental telepathy with a really big angry dinosaur, which is pretty good, but, she kind of lost the link in some of the previous stories. But yeah, I mean, I like seeing this because, they've still run, even, though Doc Justice has been taking them under their wing, they still act as a family. They're still together. And as a character, you get to see Chase, he pretty much fights until he can't fight anymore. But I think another thing that I really like is that they have a character called Gib, who was offspring of the Gibberim. And you finally get to see how he eats, thanks to Old Lace. And then for some reason, I don't know why, he just grows really big horns. So I'm worried, is he going to get real big like the other Gibberim in the original series? Don't know. But then you also know it's going to be interesting to see where they go now, because Doc Justice, he was kind of like a big media guy. He would actually kill off members of his team to try to, generate sympathy with the public. But now the Runaways have been brought into, the public eye, which is something that they're not used to. So, I don't know. I just want to see how they move forward. Do they still continue to be superheroes? Not sure. But then also at the end, you get to see, an old face that...
I was wondering who was making that noise.
He keeps on coming back.
Yes.
Like the ring around the tub. He never really seems to go away. But with him picking up the mask, I'm just great. Now he's going to be a supervillain. Off, you stupid cat. Sorry, she's not being very...
He's meowing.
Yeah, my cat's out of control through here.
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah. Runaways 31. This is, I think, isn't this the longest run that the Runaways has ever had?
Yeah, the first one, went up to 18 issues for that first Brian K. Vaughan volume, and then they did a lot of like kind of resets. There's some that kind of continued on, but I think this is the most continuous. Yeah, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, it never should have stopped in the first place, but Marvel just likes to keep on making number ones and maintaining their revolving door of death.
All right, moving on to Outlawed, issue number 1. This is a one-shot here. Exploding from the pages of Incoming. In the wake of a devastating tragedy, the United States passes a law that will shake the Marvel Universe to its core. The world has had enough of teen heroes. The crackdown has begun, and the lives of Marvel's next generation will never be the same again. This here is a book that pretty much has all my favorite characters, the ones that have mostly been filling out the Champions team for the last couple years. You got her Sam Alexander Nova, you got Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel, you got Miles Morales Spider-Man, and many, many more. You see the Unstoppable Wasp in here. You got Riri Williams, got a cameo from Captain Marvel, even Vision. What's really cool about this, the structure of the story is kind of opening up with this court case as everyone's just kind of talking about an event that had happened, but as the reader, we don't know what that is until we cut back to that story. And we see just a normal day at one of the schools here, and you have some of the heroes that are on lookout. And I think there's like a presentation going on, and they suspect that there could be some villainous activity, so they're just kind of covering their bases. And I didn't think this was going to happen when this big dragon-type beast showed up. And I'm just expecting, just some Marvel, like Crossbones is going to show up or something like that. And all of a sudden this giant dragon shows up, which causes all the heroes to form together. I was going to say assemble, but they all kind of broke off from the Avengers and formed the Champions. I'm sure they had some kind of battle cry, but I forget what it is at the moment. But yeah, they have some awesome splash pages here for a lot of action going on. But you're seeing the events of what once again gets back to that court case, wondering what would eventually lead to the reason why they want to outlaw these teenage superheroes. And there's some tragedy that happens in this book that really sets the pace for what's to come. This series is, or this story rather, is going to leak into a bunch of other books. And originally when pre-ordering, I was just like, all right, I want to get this one, and then I'll just continue getting the solo series of the books I want. But this story, I think, might sell me on getting some of the connecting issues that happen in a bunch of the other series that I wasn't normally getting. So, because Kamala Khan is one of my favorites. I've got her Tsum Tsum right here, Kamala Khan Tsum Tsum. And Vision, who's also in this book, has a Tsum Tsum, so might as well. Riri Williams up here, which you might be able to see up in the sky there. So I'm a big fan of all these characters, so I'm going to follow them basically wherever their story is told. And Eve Ewing, who did the Riri Williams 12-issue series, is the one that was helming this particular one here, with art Kim Jacinto and Espen Grundajourn. Grundajourn is the color artist, and Clayton Cowell's on letters. Awesome kickoff to the story. I got vibes of the opening scenes from the first Marvel Civil War, of just kind of like this one event that just turned into now something bigger, that caused what the main focus is. So Outlawed #1, really dug it, and I think it is a good I think it's very welcoming to people who haven't read any of these characters at all. They do a good job. So A Day of Reckoning comes from Marvel's Young Heroes, Outlawed #1. Damon?
Well, my next pick this week is The Plunge, issue #2. When I had read issue #1, it was a great setup. I had said that it's probably my second favorite title in the Hill House comic brand, and after reading issue 2, it's still a good title. This is a strong setup. There's even still more getting set up in this issue, so it hasn't even really gotten going yet, and it's still fun. This starts off where the first one ended. They made it to the ship that just has reappeared after like 40 years of being vanished, and she finds a corpse on the island, and it speaks her name. This one picks off right where that leaves off. You know, they bring the body back onto their ship. They're exploring the island some more. And, of course, the body they bring back to the ship isn't really dead. They notice a lot of the crustacean life around the beach is mutated. So something is really going on. When she dives under the water, she sees that weird totem pole looking thing.
Hmm.
And, of course, yeah, that's smart. Dive into the water in the middle of the Arctic Circle. But, hey, you know, it's a comic. So it's setting up. I don't know if they're zombies. I don't know what these things are. They do have a consciousness. For instance, here's 3 of them hiding in the bushes just watching the rest of the crew. So they know not to come out. You know, they're waiting. They're picking their moments. I think these are the crew of the ship. We still don't know what happened or where it's going from there. And there's a couple more secrets in here, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone who might want to pick these up. But it's shaping up to be a really fun storyline, written by Joe Hill and drawn by Stuart Imonen and Dave Stewart.
Immonen?
Yeah, I'm bad with names, so I apologize if they ever see this and I butchered their names. Don't hate me forever.
That one I've heard a couple times, so I knew that one.
But there's like weird creatures in the water and something's going on. So it's shaping up to be a nice horror series. So if you're into the horror stuff, I recommend picking it up.
Excellent. Jim?
All right. I've got a new title from Dark Horse called Starship Down. Here we are. All right.
Now, just in
And
case
this one-
Tim is listening, is this related to Watership Down at all?
No,
I think there's like
no,
2 or 3
it's not.
people that get that.
This is a story of an archaeologist who's called to a mining pit in Siberia, where an operation is underway by both the Russians and the Americans to investigate this strange site that's found at the bottom of the pit, where there are these cave painting petroglyph kind of things that indicate possibly alien visitation. And then while she's there, she also is introduced to the bigger mystery, which is a
ElfQuest.
spaceship also buried in the rocks. After that happens, they're also visited by a member from the Vatican who wants to control what's going on with this narrative here. And in the course of the investigation, they enter the ship and find out that these were the people that were on the ship. And her reaction is, are those Neanderthals? So you find Neanderthals living in the deep sleep capsules within this spaceship. So yeah, this seems to be going to be an interesting story. I believe this is going to be a limited 4 or 5 issue story. So find out, well, we know a little bit about where it's going, but how they wrap that up is going to be interesting.
So again, Tim, it is not rabbits in space.
This time.
Well, they might be wearing rabbit fur.
All right, let's move over to
I've
Eric.
got some rabbit violence at one point.
Stabby rabbit.
Oh, speaking of stabby rabbits, we see Black Jack O'Hare on cover of Guardians of the Galaxy #3. Last issue, again, major spoiler. At least to our knowledge, Peter Quill is dead. So I'm very, very sorry, Kurt. Oh, they're getting their copies.
We all left.
Well, that might be why Kurt hasn't been around lately.
I would explain a lot.
Oh wait,
Oh.
This is the wrong one.
Stabby buddy. My interest is piqued. But anyway, the reason I pulled this one is because the way they started it out. Now, maybe there's a reason for this. Maybe, Anthony, you can explain it to me. But, you know, in the previous issues, Peter Quill took a few of the other Guardians on a mission. He was the one who didn't come back. So the Bowie comes back. And you see the characters that aren't Groot are basically talking like Groot. You see, I am Gamora, I am Drax, I am Hercules, I am Rocket.
I am Eric.
I'm sorry. But so we see this.
Yes.
And I'm like, you can kind of tell what's going on, but Groot can actually, narrate with language. I don't know. Is there a reason for this?
What I understand is that this was just a unique approach to kind of. This is everything from Groot's perspective, at least for this opening part, because everyone that Groot is talking to, Groot who has been speaking, human language, not speaking I am Groot for a while now, but the approach on this is seeing him talking to everybody. And all he hears is the I am Groot, or I am Drax, I am Gamora. And it's such a good story device for basically how you would hear Rocket and Groot talk. You don't need to know what Groot was saying because of the way Rocket was reacting, and you can get a lot of that, the drama and the emotion out of it. And you're getting it the same way, but now it's opposite, because what it feels like is just that it's just from Groot's perspective on this. And that goes for a while, and then eventually it kind of goes back to normal, if you will. But I don't think there's any reason for it other than here's a cool idea. Let's just use this moment to do it.
Yeah, it was interesting. It kind of gives you a little understanding to, how Rocket and Groot, got along beforehand. But then I don't know, I guess later other people started understanding Groot before he started talking as a human. But yeah, this also introduced me to a new character other people probably know about him, Blackjack O'Hare, who looks to be like a cybernetic bunny similar to Rocket. I don't know, Anthony, maybe you know him.
Yeah, he's got. David, do you have any info on him?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar with him at all. Actually, I think the first time I saw him, we were on the Valentine's Day card things.
Because I know there was old British sci-fi thing called Bucky O'Hare, where it was a green rabbit, and it was a sci-fi space adventure. But
what we have here is Blackjack O'Hare is a fictional anthropomorphic hare in Marvel Comics. The character created by Bill Mantlo, who is the co-creator of Rocket Raccoon, by the way, and Sal Buscema, first appeared in the Incredible Hulk number 271. Which I'm wondering if that's Rocket's first issue as well, because I think Rocket debuted in the Hulk book. But yeah, he is a mercenary and leader of the Black Bunny Brigade. I may have read him in Rocket's 4-issue solo series that eventually came out, but I don't remember much. I'd have to revisit that. Anyways.
But we see that, at least in the last page, he's about to have a really interesting encounter with Rocket, especially considering that the rest of the Guardians might just be hired for this. So, and personally, I'm just trying to figure out who the heck is Castor Narbecue. It gives you or Bark. Okay, I get it now. Ugh.
Oh yeah.
But
I think these characters, that one too, I'm guessing these all came from Rocket's Half-World story on. There's a 4-issue miniseries, I think back in the 80s, and I think that's where all these characters had come from. Because there's an otter, I think that was Rocket's girlfriend. I can't think of her name at this point, but I'm guessing all these characters probably are brought from that story. So
I don't know. So far, everyone I met who isn't a raccoon in this doesn't seem to like Rocket very much. So maybe the whole Death of Rocket arc that kept on getting foreshadowed in the last run but never materialized actually is coming.
yeah.
I hope not. I like Rocket.
Well, even if he dies within this next year, he'll be back when Guardians Volume 3 comes out. He'll be brought back. So
Right,
good.
just like Peter Quill.
yep.
As long as he builds stuff that blows things up, I'll be happy.
And
All right.
to do that, he's going to need a leg or an eye or something to do it with.
Oh, I'll get that on. Okay, moving on to Captain Marvel issue number 16, which is also the legacy numbering for 150 of Carol Danvers' stories here. The Last Avenger conclusion. It's all come down to Captain Marvel versus Vox Supreme. Since discovering her Kree heritage, Carol Danvers has struggled to reconcile her human and alien sides. Now she must fight for both, or lose everything. But Earth's mightiest hero has a new plan. Will the power of the Avengers be enough to save the world? Final cover may vary. I guess I probably shouldn't have read that part. Okay, so this is
Maybe your cover will change.
Whoa, it did. Where'd it go? What I really loved about this particular arc here, The Last Avenger, it was basically set up with Carol Danvers kind of being thrown, like blackmailed in a way where Vox Supreme, who we met in the, I think the Death of the Inhumans story arc a couple years, 2 years ago maybe, he's targeting a bunch of Kree refugee camps with a bunch of Kree kids, and she's going to use Carol as his pawn to basically get all of the Avengers by saying, if you don't deliver me the dead bodies or the unconscious bodies of the Avengers, I'm going to bomb all of these Kree refugee camps. And Carol's just not going to let that happen. So she has to find a way to save everybody, basically. And she's trapped in this suit that Vox puts her in, that he is monitoring her the whole time. And the first issue, I talked about it, I think 2 or 3 months ago now. It was a big bloody battle with her beating up and decapitating Thor. And that was all we saw as the reader was like, whoa, what the heck is going on here? Captain Marvel has gone crazy. She just murdered Thor. We don't know what the reason was. We had to wait 1 more month until we actually saw what was going on, which was a pretty cool story element. I'm looking for my action figure that goes along with the story, but I found her. So what was cool is we find out that Carol Danvers, a couple months ago now, found a way around being monitored by Vox by jumping into a little pocket dimension. Now, you may think the pocket dimension would have been through Chewie. This is actually not Chewie. That's Goose. But Chewie from the comics, you thought that would have maybe been the pocket dimension, but instead they brought back one of my favorite characters who I am shocked got an action figure because it's just such a deep cut, but Singularity. Singularity debuted in the A-Force comics during the Secret Wars in 2015, and she's just this cool, fun little character, very lovable, very nice, very polite. She's just very bright and everything, and she can create these pocket universes that she can hide in, basically. They brought her into the Prime universe after Secret Wars, and ever since the A-Force cancellation of that miniseries, she basically hasn't been around. So when I picked up that second issue, all of a sudden she just popped up, and we found out, because Carol and her had a connection back back in those stories. So bringing Singularity into the story was an awesome surprise, and it showed that Carol has been fighting each Avenger as the months go on, but then knocking them out, putting them in that pocket dimension, and then explaining to them what is going on, but Vox doesn't know that she's, letting all the other Avengers know what's happening. And she's basically taking clone bodies of all the Avengers, which is, I'm sure, some Nick Fury shield thing or something. But there's clone bodies of everybody in the Marvel Universe.
I thought that was just in the X-Men side of things.
Oh, no, it's everywhere now, not just Krakoa. But what's cool about this, this is an awesome celebratory cover. Carol Danvers, you have the Avengers all drawn behind her, and she's wielding Captain America's shield. She's got Iron Man's gauntlet, his repulsor rays or whatever, and Mjolnir. And when people saw this cover, they lost their crap, or lost their sugar, if you will. They
lost their sugar, did they?
They lost their sugar because they were like, oh my God, I can't believe they're giving Carol, all of the Avengers powers, and she's killing the Avengers, and there's going to be no more Avengers. But I was addressing some of the people that thought that just by looking at a cover, a very heroic cover. And I'm like, oh, so you have a problem with her saving refugee kids and her friends? And a lot of people are like, what? I'm like, well, I guess you're not reading the story because you're just reacting to the idea that, she's standing there heroic, holding weapons, and they just assumed the worst, that they were just going to kill all the Avengers and there was going to only be one superhero in the Marvel Universe. That's not what happened. So when you actually read the story, you realize that she is using the help of the Avengers in order to stop Fox to basically break free of this suit and help save everybody. So it was an awesome story. The way the pacing has been, Kelly Thompson has just been doing an awesome job. I've talked about it before. Loving her run. Favorite run on Carol's Captain Marvel since the original one with Kelly Sue DeConnick and all the artists that paired up with her. So this is Captain Marvel number 150, otherwise known as issue number 16, wrapping up the story arc, but it definitely is going to set it up for what's to come. I'm excited for more. All right, Damon?
My last pick for the week is Star Wars number 4. Now, before I start with my review on Star Wars number 4, I must make an admission. Last week would have been the week I would have discussed Star Wars Darth Vader number 2. Now, after Darth Vader number 1, I had claimed something. I want you to mark the tape, document the date and time, because for the first time this decade, I was wrong. That was not Jar Jar that got killed. It was just some gum.
Well, thank God.
I admit when I'm wrong.
Disappointed.
And they didn't even address it in the book. You had to read the letters to the editor, your special features at the back of the book, because someone asked, was that Jar Jar that died? And the writer said, no, that was just some Gungan. They won't let me do a Jar Jar story yet, but hopefully in the future. So I admit I was wrong. It still don't make sense why the transmitter was in Padme's apartment, but I digress. Back to number 4. I am really digging this Star Wars series. Most of the Star Wars stuff up until this run always took place after Episode 4. This series is the nice tie-in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And the end of Episode 3, Leia was frozen in carbonite because they had returned to Cloud City. And at the same time, Lando was trying to save Lubat, and Luke was looking for his lightsaber. Of course, the Empire is still there and moves in on them. So this is basically a rescue mission of Luke trying to find his lightsaber, Lando trying to save his friend Lubat, if I'm saying that name right.
Lubat.
And both of them trying to rescue Leia from the stormtroopers.
Larry and Robot, right?
Could be, yeah.
Like Robot Larry. We just call him Lobot.
This is the issue where Luke really gets a sense of his Force powers. Up until this point, he had just dabbled with a couple things, but this is when he really gets fine-tuned with the Force, and he's able to do things. He's gotten past the Darth Vader is his father. He's accepted the loss of his lightsaber, and this is where he really starts to show his ability to use the Force. It was a fun issue, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with this run to bridge the gap between episodes 5 and 6. I don't know. Is anyone else reading this run?
Musa is reading it, and Musa loving moi moi.
Wait.
Just for
you're
that.
about to make Eric's head explode. So.
This is the only place where Jar Jar lives. He is frozen in carbonite forever.
How rude.
Exactly. So what did you think of this issue then?
I really dug it. I love the action in it. I like seeing more of the Cloud City stuff, and just the search for the lightsaber was kind of cool. And then how you just see those characters. I forget. I'm sure they have names and people probably know them. But just like going through that junkyard, I really liked that whole scene.
I was hoping one of them would say, "I have spoken," but they never did.
But yeah, like overall, just the idea of like knowing in Return of the Jedi when Leia goes to free Han Solo and all that stuff. I like that Charles Soule here took the idea of like, hey, we can tell a story about why she would know the information on how to do that. Naturally, we didn't need to know that, but they use that, just that little pocket space to just be like, hey, we can tell a story about it, and kind of just further enriching, the story. And when she gets there and she knows what the press and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I just like all of these missing little stories here that just kind of breathe life into the movies. And you can, once you rewatch Return of the Jedi, will now be thinking about that, like, oh yeah, because this happened and that happened. And so yeah, they've just been doing an awesome job with that. So
now the one thing I've worried about is they're exploring Luke's Force abilities a little bit more. They're getting into that. With the original trilogy, when you compare it to what Luke did as a Jedi versus what other Jedis did in the prequel movies and the newest trilogy and everything, and you look and Luke did like nothing as a Jedi. So I wonder if the comic will tackle that and have him doing more of these things that you see the other Jedi doing, to kind of use the comics to say that, yes, Luke could do this stuff too. It wasn't just that, oh, we made up all this other stuff afterwards, which of course they did, but just to kind of tie it all together.
I do believe that this is the first issue where we see Luke use a Force push. Because he uses the Force to push 5 stormtroopers out a window falling to their death. I don't think he's done that yet. Even in the movies, I don't think he's ever done that. I'm trying to rethink of Return of the Jedi if he ever used the Force push. But I can't picture him using it. So it's the first time we get to see it other than like in video games and stuff.
But there's so many new Force abilities that come up in other media and the other media and everything. It'd be interesting. Will they show Luke running its like super speed, or some of these crazy things that they've done in other movies and stuff, where you look at it and go, well, I guess Luke really wasn't that great of a Jedi, when you compare him to even some of these. Well, I won't say no name. I can't think of their names because most people don't know them, but yeah, I'm sure they've all had an action figure and everything. But a lot of the Jedi can do just amazing things, and none of that was ever used in the original trilogy.
All right. I think that will do it for our weekly review segment. Let's move on to the news. This is the part where I stop the podcast recording. I hit save. I hit record. Okay, welcome to the new segment. What we are going to talk about here is how this comic club is going to move forward with the news of the coronavirus, and which led to Diamond Distributing putting a pause on shipping brand new comic books. This past Wednesday, at the time of this recording, was the quote-unquote final new comic book day for the foreseeable future. We will still have one more podcast after this one that will talk about those releases.
Right.
But,
so the stuff that came this Wednesday, we will discuss next Saturday when we get together and have a club. So we've got those books to talk about. Following
we don't
that,
get together and have a club.
We'll still get together. We'll still. We won't get together physically here. At least I don't see that happening. But we'll still have a club next week. But we'll still have a club beyond next week. You know, there's different things that we can do. We'll probably do it in this kind of setting where we'll, I'll sit around our special little rooms wherever we've got set aside. For me, it's down in the same place that we would normally do the club. But for each of you, it's, wherever you're sitting, whether it's on the toilet or in your own special little man caves. So
for those future episodes now, when I'm done reading new comics each week, I go and read old comics, things that I've either picked up at conventions, trades that I bought through the store, or old collection I just want to revisit. So I guess for moving forward, while there won't be any club discussions, unless we get a news update saying like, all right, here's a certain time when it's all happening, and maybe we will pick something that,
we'll all reread Watchmen and discuss
stuff.
I don't know.
And or Doomsday Clock, and we'll continue to review each issue 7 months apart from each other. We'll maybe do that. But what I kind of will suggest and plan on doing is that I'm always constantly reading comics, and the show could continue in that, just being like, all right, here's the weekly reviews, here's what I've been reading, I've been doing my all read, and here's the Madman issue that I'm currently reading, and things like that. So I think we could probably still keep that format. Maybe there'll be some more letters page, open discussions, because I'm not sure if everyone's going to have tons of stuff to read if they wanted to go back or whatever, but I think we can still keep doing the same thing. It just won't be brand new issues until who knows when.
Right.
Suggestions, comments?
I think that's the way to go. I've been reading, like I just read a whole bunch of old X Factor from the beginning all the way up to like Inferno now. With that, and then I might pick up some other stuff and reread it. So, right now I could spend an episode just talking about, okay, well, this is what happened in the first however many issues of X Factor and stuff like that. And I might go back and read some of my Superman stuff, or some of my old favorites that I haven't even touched for a long time. Now's a great time to do it. A lot of people have extra time. Some of us are still working. In fact, I don't know if there's anybody here who's not. I think all of us, right? Damon, you still?
Yep, I'm working from home.
You're like an essential employee or whatever, part of an essential business.
Yep.
So we've all got that. I know a lot of people have, and even working, probably have a little bit more time because you can't go out and do all the things that you normally did. Anthony's not seeing the same movie in the theater, every night for a week, and things like that. So it's a little bit more time. You can bust out the old back issues, some old trades or whatever, and read away. I've got all kinds of stuff that I can read. Unfortunately, I don't have as much time is what I'd love to have to read them. But for those who do have the time, go back and reread the stuff, and we can get together and we can talk about it. I had thought about if there was something that a lot of us have read, some of that kind of stuff, like I mentioned, Watchmen, for everybody who's read that or whatever, could that potentially be something where, hey, we've all read that. Do we want to all agree to revisit that, and we'll go back and talk about it? And it doesn't have to be that, but something like that, which we can discuss on our group page on Facebook or whatever, and kind of come up with something. But there are those options to do even club picks. But definitely for us to each come to the figurative table with new books every week that are actually old books.
Yeah, any other thoughts from anybody while I reread Watchmen? What do you guys think?
I think that sounds like a good idea. I mean, I'm pretty sure we all have collections where we can go back, revisit things. I know, there's a lot of comics that I had as a child that I haven't read in decades. So it might be a good time to look back at that and either say, what was I doing reading that? Or be like, oh, okay, well, I didn't look at it in that light. So
I'm afraid to ask as a child what you read.
I'll give you one guess. It's the same guess everyone will make anyway.
My Little Pony.
Hey, that's what Dupe is doing.
Dupe.
So of course, even with the massive shutdowns of just about everything, well, not really, because most of these essential businesses are pretty much every business. But with all the shutdowns that there are that affect things like the comic book industry, there's still ways for the show to go on, and so it will.
All right, so on that note, once again, we will return to you next week with the brand new comics that we read, and then we will continue to bring you what we think about comics. This entire time, I've been King Humblebrag.
I've been needing another drink.
I used to be me.
I'm going to be Eric again.
Did you just pitch dick babies?
To be continued.